Welcome, folks, to the Cover One Football Weekly recap of a game that we had earmarked here on Cover One Football Weekly, the New York Jets versus the Green Bay Packers. We talked about in our 3-2 teams segment on last week's episode of Cover One Football Weekly, who are the contenders, who are the pretenders, separating the real from the fake. We talked about both of these teams. We've been talking about the Green Bay Packers, honestly, since they lost in week 1 to the Vikings as being this team that we had faith in. They would right the ship. We talked about the Jets last week at being 3-2, and they still had more to show. So this was a game that we had earmarked here on this show because there were two teams that we had spoken about at length last week and at multiple points on this show. And the Jets go into Green Bay, and we continue to see the same struggles from the Packers. We see a Jets team that the Jets just looked like they wanted it. It also seemed like there were a ton of Jets fans at Lambeau, which just, I guess, doesn't seem outrageous. But Sauce Gardner even said it after the game that it felt like they were playing a home game at times with how loud the Jets fans were. I don't think any of us had, if any of us thought the Jets were winning, I don't think anybody had it as convincingly as they did. But I think all three of us, we thought the Packers would right this ship, and we had questions about whether or not the Jets were for real. And here we are with the Jets picking up a convincing win in Green Bay. Russ, let's start with the Packers. I remember you specifically echoing my sentiments in week 1 after they lost to the Vikings. I was like, they'll be fine. They'll right some wrongs. We're still seeing a lot of those wrongs. We're seeing miscommunication and breakdowns on defense. We're seeing an offense that continues to just live horizontally. Like everything is just flat routes and slant flats and screens and stick and RPOs and run game. The receivers and the tight ends get very little separation in the route distribution. They are just they're getting beat up physically at times. They can't separate. The Jets came into this game and just ran a bunch of man coverage. It seemed like in a lot of high leverage situations, and it was just easy wins at times. Sauce Gardner looked fantastic. I think that's a credit to Sauce more than anything. But we're seeing just an offense that is not in rhythm. They're not playing well. And also you come out of this game, Aaron Rodgers saying that he wants to simplify the offense. And when Matt LaFleur was asked about that, head coach Matt LaFleur, he says, I don't know what that means. So not on the same page.
Not good.
For the talisman. It's not great. It's bad optics. It's bad everything. It's showing on the field. Let's start with the Packers, Russ. Let's start with the offensive side of the ball, a group that I don't think anybody could be faulted for having your faith in Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur, and you still got Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon and a good offensive line, and some of you like some of the weapons, but the line hasn't looked good. Rodgers looks off. Some people are thinking he's kind of checked out. Everything just looks hard and squeezed and tight for this Packers offense. Where is this Packers offense? What's going on?
No, I mean, not enough carries to Aaron Jones, 9 carries, averaging 2.1 yards per carry, had 60 yards on the ground. I mean, the receivers aren't getting open. Romeo Doubs is getting locked down by Sauce Gardner no matter what way he's running. Randall Cobb's done at least for the next couple of weeks.
I felt so bad for him.
Yeah,
He looked,
that was
you could
rough.
see the sadness in his eyes. I felt so bad.
Yeah, I mean, and they're turning over to Robert Tonyan, that's fine. I mean, he was fine before he got hurt last year, but Allen Lazard's not a true number 1 receiver.
Right.
Romeo Doubs, not a number 1 receiver, not yet at least, and maybe I don't think ever will be. Probably more of like that number 2. Like you see him wearing like number 87, you think of what's that old receiver?
Donald Driver.
Donald Driver. Well, I think they had another guy, Javon Walker.
Oh, Javon Walker, yeah, with the 5 years, yeah,
No.
Javon Walker.
Yeah, like you go back down the wormhole there, and like you just see all these classic receivers with that number, and you're like, okay, maybe, but I don't know. I don't see it necessarily. Christian Watson's non-existent. Not even. I don't think he's healthy. Like it's just there's nothing good on offense outside of the name Aaron Rodgers and the talent that is A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, and those guys just don't get fed enough. And when they do, they get fed at the worst times. And I don't even think it's like I don't think the play calling has to be simplified. I just think it has to be like rotated, like run on first down, not on 2nd and 12 after your quarterback gets sacked. Run on 1st and 10, then play action. Like it just.
It's disjointed. It just doesn't seem like it. Again, everything just seems hard. It seems like whatever they call, it's the wrong time, no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like personnel. There's the wrong personnel out there. So, I mean, you hope that they figure it out because there's a talent there and it's Aaron Rodgers and he makes football fun. But defensively, like they got gashed on the ground, 179 yards. Brees Hall gets 116 yards,
Yup.
almost 6 yards per carry. TJ Slayton, non-existent in the run game. Dean Lowry, non-existent in the run game. Kenny Clark, non-existent in the run game. Quay Walker, at times, the rookie linebacker, looks a little lost. And it's like he's a good player, a lot of talent there, but still very rough around the edges.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing from him is kind of the player that he was at Georgia. What you saw with him is what you were going to get. And you're hoping that NFL coaching can change that. And he's going to get stopped. He's going to get in spots where he's on an island and he's going to struggle because he's going to miss tackles. He's, the same size as everybody else now. He's not playing against Vanderbilt where he's bigger than everybody, or he's gotten a Kobe Dean or Jordan Davis in front of him. He's going to get put in those islands and he's struggling. And they don't have anybody else really in the middle. Like Devondre Campbell, sure, fine, but it's not the same. Like there's no real impact in the middle of that defense outside of Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary off the edge. And that should be enough to do it for you. But when those guys are playing out of position, it's brutal. Offensively, again, young receivers getting matched up against rookie corners who we knew we knew Sauce was going to be the guy. But I mean, are the Jets for real? Like last week, you were saying it all week. Like they seem to be legit. And 2 weeks in a row with Zach Wilson, the offense is clicking. They're running the football. They're scoring on everybody, and they go to Lambeau and win. I mean,
I'm watching this game back, and it's into the third quarter, and Zach Wilson has like 26 passing yards.
They were not moving the ball.
And then at one point he's like 8 of 18 for like 80 yards, but they're like in control of the game. And it's just some of the things like Jair Alexander was locking down whoever he was covering. He was in man coverage a lot versus Garrett Wilson. And I'm starting to think, okay, like we're starting to get back to that Jair Alexander, which is huge. But again, to your Quay Walker point, him and Campbell, it just seems like every week there is, and I guess this isn't like a huge knock against either because it happens. You break down from time to time. But I feel like there's just a lot of readily available examples of Campbell thinks that Quay is going to do A, and then Quay thinks that he's supposed to do B. And there's just a breakdown and it leads to a big gain. And it just happens with regularity. You see, to your point, those breakdowns in the middle of the field. And I think there is a learning curve with Quay Walker, which is fine and should be expected. But I put it on the shoulders of everyone else. You have enough players on this team with the safety duo that you had coming into this year, with the season that Eric Stokes had as a rookie last year, with Rasul Douglas was. You still have Preston Smith. You have Kenny Clark up front. You have Rashawn Gary. You have enough pieces to lean on with this defense to be able to make some sort of impact to balance out any type of shortcomings that a rookie Quay Walker may have. I don't know. Go ahead.
Braxton Berrios scored on a freaking 20-yard end around. There's no reason to why Braxton Berrios is scanning.
And on that play, everybody gets fooled to the point when Dwayne Brown does the full block and he's leading out Berrios on that full block. It's Brown one-on-one with Jair Alexander, and then Berrios does a good job of setting that block up. He stutters, gets Jair to commit to the outside, cuts it back upfield inside. And then it's about 5-6 yards of being completely untouched. And then there's some blocking downfield. But yeah, the whole defense just follow. They go with their eyes. They follow the eye candy. They get beat. And it's a walk-in touchdown for Berrios. Credit to Berrios for setting that up to a degree. But you're seeing busts in the middle of the field and completions to Ty Conklin. You're seeing guys just get lost. And there's the Uzama screen where he's got his 3 blockers in front of him. There's just no one within like 7, 8, 9 yards of Uzama who moves like he's stuck in cement after his injury, but he still gets like plenty for a first down. There's just all these disconnects and pieces on the defensive side of the ball. And then on the offensive side, like it's just struggles left and right. And Kendall, Packers, kind of dumpster fire, definitely underachieving to this point.
Yeah.
Where's your head at with this Packers team? Are you seeing it offensively? Is it defensively? Is it holistically just bad? Like this is a team that, and again, I think when you have Aaron Rodgers, things still could right themselves and the ship could right itself. But this looks like a team that I think is losing faith amongst its like fans and believers like week after week because they're just not correcting things on either side of the ball.
I will say I think more of it is on the offense than the defense. I think you're seeing more bright spots from the defense, even with all of the miscommunications and everything they thought Quay Walker was going to be and how he was going to help out Devondre Campbell and how that's not happening to this point, and all of those superstars not necessarily playing to their potential, but they're still playing well. It's just not up to expectations. So I don't want to put too much on the defense, although they should be better, but this offense is just not keeping them in games. Because if you flip it, like think about the Jets, we just talked about it. Like they didn't have a lot of yards outside of the running game. Like they ran the ball well. That's just fundamentally you have to be better with your run fit.
They also had a block. And the Jets also had a block punt for a touchdown and a blocked field goal that like helped them put points on the board.
Both sides, and the Packers still couldn't even it out.
No.
But most of the yards that the Jets were getting, it was like, trick plays, reverses, screens, something gimmicky. It wasn't necessarily like just normal flow of offense. They had to go into some sort of bag of tricks to get some sustainable form of offense. Like even the long touchdown to Breece Hall on that like wing tee look to Breece, like that's, you're not going to see that.
Do you know that so that play, like you heard him after talk about that play?
I didn't.
That play was supposed to be, so Breece gets it. He was supposed to pitch it to
back
Garrett
to
Wilson.
Carter.
Garrett Wilson coming. If you watch, Garrett Wilson's coming from the bottom of the screen on like an end around look. But the Packers get so far upfield, and this is just
takes it.
Exactly. He just goes into business for himself, rightly, and is like, "Uh-oh, I can't do that. Let me cut upfield." And then again, to our connecting point earlier, Russ, Quay Walker over pursues too much. He's completely out of position. But then Breece Hall runs through the whole spine of the defense. Devondre Campbell runs him down. Breece just kind of pushes off him and coasts into the end zone. Like, I think Breece Hall is a phenomenal talent, but there are multiple times in this game, Kendall, to your point, where like when things started to work a little bit, it was either gimmicky stuff from the offense and like eye candy that fooled the Packers, or a lot of it was Breece Hall just playing above the scheme and just setting up blocks and making guys miss, whether out in space or at the first and second level. And you just have, and this isn't a knock against Breece Hall, but like I just feel like a rookie running back against a defense on a team that has Super Bowl aspirations in the Packers should not be like gashing you like that and clowning you and sunning you to the point that he's just running through your whole squad on an improvised play. And that's symptomatic of what's been happening to the Packers.
Right. So obviously the defensive stuff, like there are too many lapses in judgment and like that can't happen. But you are seeing those moments. Like you said, Jair Alexander was locking up Garrett Wilson. I think he had like 8 targets and 1 catch. So
very good.
He's getting better. And I think those kind of things are going to start falling into place and the cream is going to start rising to the top. But on offense, like it's still, like we talked about, it's disjointed. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was under pressure on 33% of his dropbacks in this game, which is the highest rate of pressure he's been under this season. So obviously did not look comfortable, continued to feed the veterans. And then, Tanyan led the team, the tight end, 10 receptions on 12 targets, followed by Lazard, like Russ talked about, probably not a number 1 wide receiver in this league, still got 9 targets, only hauled in 4. So, and then Cobb goes down. Like there's less veterans on this team now. Like you lose a veteran, you lose that trust. Now you got to lean on a rookie. And I think Dobbs is that guy for this offense in terms of like the rookie that needs to step up. But yeah, like Russ said, is his ceiling much higher than wide receiver 2? Like what is there more to tap into other than just breaking through the rookie like bumps in the road type of things? I think once you get past that, you're looking at a solid wide receiver 2. There's nothing wrong with that, but is he going to elevate this offense the way Devontae Adams did?
Well,
no, he's not. So it's just really tough to watch this offense just continue to struggle and try to do things the way they did with Devontae Adams and not use those running backs. 100% agree with Russ and Anthony from weeks like we've been talking about. Get Jones and Dillon involved because these guys are the best playmakers on this offense outside of Aaron Rodgers. They have to start giving them the ball on first down to make second down easier instead of, like you said, Russ, going backwards from it. Oh, you get sacked on first down? All right, I guess we're going to try to run it and make third a little bit more manageable. But it just becomes predictable. So obviously things are bleak in terms of what's going on with the Packers offense, but I should say, I mean, the Jets were very disruptive. Their defensive line play was
tremendous.
immaculate. I mean, Quinnen Williams has stepped up for a few straight weeks in a row. 20 total pressures for them, 4 sacks, 2 from Quinnen Williams alone, and then 6 QB hits and 10 QB hurries. I mean, that's a lot of pressure and a lot of impacting the quarterback, which obviously with the supporting cast that Aaron Rodgers has, and you can see how disgruntled he is with it, it's only going to make life more difficult.
You know what's crazy? This team offensively, as we talk about Jones and Dillon not getting more involved, they have 3 rushing touchdowns on the year, which isn't that bad considering 6 games played, but like that's near the bottom of the NFL. Like Denver has 2, the Colts have 2, the Bills only have 3, which is fine. The Bills have a high-powered passing attack. Clearly, the Packers do not. The Eagles have 13 rushing touchdowns. The Browns have 13 rushing touchdowns, and those are teams that are averaging well over 150 yards per game. The Packers are limited to like 122 or whatever it is. But then when you look at carries, like they've only had 156 carries for the season. And like when you throw in, you know, the averages between 2 running backs, between 6 games, like it's really not that much. I would have to run the numbers, but I wanted to go over the defensive number. And that's just the fact that this defense is getting shredded. From a run game perspective, they've allowed the 5th most rushing yards in the NFL, 811.
And they're last in the NFL in rushing DVOA for defense. Last.
Right. So it goes to show like they're backwards on offense with the run game. They're backwards on defense with the run game. And like if like they would just improve it, like to just get to the middle of the road, they wouldn't get gashed all this much. And things would look a lot better. But third down percentage, so it's at like 36 or 37% in that range. And it's like they're like a step ahead of like the Denver Broncos. And it's like that's not good enough. Like you have Aaron Rodgers. Like it makes no sense to me of why they are the way that they are. I mean, like you're asking Romeo Doubs to be, as Kendall mentioned, a wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's getting 4 or 5 receptions a game. He's doing the most he can do. Like you probably should have paid Devontae Adams. That's probably what you should have did. Like, let's be honest.
It's really just, it's so disjointed. I think that's the perfect word to say it. And I don't want to completely like bury them now because it's only been 6 weeks and they're 3-3 and we'll see what happens. But they
got a long way to go.
They do have a long way to go. And Russ, you mentioned one of them, like that run defense schematically, like how they're fitting the run is poor, especially when even when they're going with like 5 down, like they're not fitting it properly. Their angles to the ball and how they fit it, and it's more than just a miscommunication piece. Like it's an execution piece, and they're getting outgunned week after week. We saw it really start to creep its head when Bailey Zappi just kept handing it off to Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, and they just kept running it down the Packers' throats.
Right.
And again, Russ, you mentioned like how many yards per game they give up, and they're 32nd in rushing DVOA on the defense, which is terrible. And even more so from a pass defense perspective, they're 9th against the pass, which is really good. You have a top 10 passing defense from a DVOA perspective, but they're 24th overall because their run defense DVOA is so poor. And then we flip to the other side. Losing Devontae Adams was going to be a problem. But then you're like, okay, you have Aaron Rodgers. You've got 2 good running backs. You've got enough pieces at the wide receiver position to maybe cobble something together. But at the very least, you got a really good offensive line. Even without Bakhtiari, and then once Bakhtiari comes back, you'll be fine. This game, they got completely housed by this Jets front to the point that, and as we start to shift the conversation to the Jets a little bit, the Jets are just rushing 4, and they're getting production from everyone. So Quinnen Williams, Kendall, like you mentioned, had a day. You're getting plays from Sheldon Rankins, from Franklin Myers. Like they're just running stunts and twists in game, and they're coming free, like from miscommunication. The Packers aren't passing things off well at all. And then even when they're just in one-on-one scenarios, they're just getting whooped left and right. And Rodgers, he doesn't want to stay in the pocket. He's trying to evade, but he's not that kind of Aaron Rodgers anymore. And then when he evades, he doesn't have anybody downfield to hit because the Jets are in man coverage and they're just sticky to everybody because the Packers receivers aren't getting separation. And there's so many pieces to the Packers offense with how disconnected they are, and it's leading to struggles. But as we start to shift to the Jets, This was the type of performance as they've started to get healthier this offseason or through this season into week 6 here. Robert Saleh was a really good defensive coordinator in San Francisco. And this was a defense for the Jets last year that greatly underperformed. And then they underperformed again starting this year. And everybody was like, well, they had a good draft class and Quinton Williams is sweet and Mosley is fine. And they added Quan Alexander. That's a decent enough rotation with Quincy Williams. You got DJ Reed coming in at corner. That's a cool pairing with Sauce. Like they have a decent enough rotation. Let's see what they can be. They're starting to click a little bit. You know, the Jets offense had their struggles and it was really just a Breece Hall kind of day for them. But this defense, I know the Packers are having their struggles, but this defense, they have a good coach and a good designer in Robert Saleh. They've added some talent. They played fast and mean and violent. They looked like not to make that comparison, they looked like a 49ers kind of defense where everybody's just violent and mean and flow into the football. You're hearing them whoop it up on every pass breakup, every tackle for loss, every sack. They started feeling themselves a little bit in this game. And this Jets defense is starting to look like a group that I don't want to say that everybody thought they could be, but when Robert Saleh took over this team, I think the thought would be like, okay, well, their defense is going to get an uptick. Now that they've got some horses in that stable, like we mentioned, Sauce is just locked down at this point from a reception percentage standpoint, snaps per reception, what he's able to do. Russ, you know, your boy, corner number 1 for you coming into this draft. He looks good. We'll stick with you, Russ. Like this Jets defense, legit.
It certainly looks like a 49ers defense. I mean, we're talking about Sauce Gardner as a boundary corner, press man type of corner. They lose Quincy Williams 3-4 weeks ago. He's getting carted off the field. A lot of people thought he was going to be done. He comes back yesterday, 14 tackles. Sticking dudes. I mean, you start the second half, the run fit that he had, the way he keys it, it's like 1st and 10. I think it was the Packers started the drive, and dude, I mean, he came out of nowhere and leveled the guy in the A gap. And it's just like, this guy knows what he's doing. And, you know, to kind of point that out, I mean, Saleh did a great job with guys like Greenlaw and Warner there in San Francisco. He's going to do that with guys like Quincy Williams and the defenders that they have within this defense, from CJ Mosley to Quinton Williams up the middle, obviously with Sauce on the outside, like everything that they have clicking, it's there. And you mentioned, you know, 11th ranked defense. If you're talking fantasy, sneaky, probably a sneaky team to add over the coming weeks because of the schedule. Because of the coming schedule, the way that the defense is playing, it's probably good enough to keep them in games, to keep teams to 17 to 20 points. They just have to hope that the offense can click at times. And the way that they're running the football, they might be able to. Breece Hall has had his 2 best games of his career early on here. So can that continue? We'll see. But even if it doesn't, and he kind of comes back to earth a little bit, they still have Corey Davis. They still have Garrett Williams. They still have Elijah Moore. Like, they have the receivers in play, and Zach Wilson can get him the football. Can he do it? We'll see. It's all there. Like, the ingredients are there. We'll see if they can keep this moving, but I did not expect them to win by, you know, the way that they won 27-10 to be 4-2 right now. Not expecting that. Kind of the same way I feel about the Giants, not expecting that either. So, and I know we'll talk about the Giants later this week, but yeah, I mean, Jets, Packers, Jets, are they for real? I think so.
They walked into Green Bay, into Lambeau, and punched Green Bay in the mouth and took that win from them. And it was an impressive victory for them, especially the way they did it. So, Kendall, for you, same question. The New York Jets, are they for real? Or maybe not even are they for real for you, but where's your head at? Again, 4-2, second in the AFC East to the Buffalo Bills, with a win in the division against the Miami Dolphins and a good win for them and what they're trying to build going into Green Bay and Lambeau. Where's your head at on the Jets right now?
I mean, they're ahead of schedule. I think that's like the main thing for me. It's that this is a young team getting contributions from a lot of young players, a lot of guys on their rookie contracts. And they're playing well. We like Russ said, Breece playing well from the start of his career so far. Took a little bit first couple of weeks, but I mean, he's strung together like 3 good weeks back to back to back. And then we're seeing Sauce constantly lock it down. I mean, he had 3 pass breakups on like 8 targets or something like that, and only allowed 1 reception. He's just been fantastic. But across the board, like not just the defense, but probably even more so on the offense. And this is why I think monitoring the Chiefs through the rest of the season will be interesting, because I think they're getting a lot more contributions from young guys on the offense than they are on the defense. So will those guys be able to raise their level of play and keep it up, or even get better? Because that's what it's going to take to win these games. Because as Russ said, the defense has been keeping them in these games and in fact winning them some of these games. So can the offense return the favor and do the same thing? And I want to relate it to how the Jaguars started this year. Another very, very young team who found success early in the season. But is that success consistent? Will these guys falter at any point? Because obviously this is a growing game. You learn from your mistakes. You don't just grow because you're successful. You need to know what you need to improve on. And I think without some of that like trials and tribulation kind of thing that the Jets haven't gotten because they've been winning so far, there aren't as many lessons along the way. And obviously, you know, film room each week with these guys, they're learning, of course. But sometimes you kind of need that kick in the butt, like, oh, you lost this way, you got to improve in this way. So I think monitoring them throughout the season, because they're such a young roster, will be very, very interesting for me personally. But I mean, I'm a believer in the Jets in terms of, I love what Joe Douglas has done from a drafting perspective and just personnel wise, bringing guys in. But then they're just ahead of schedule. So it's very encouraging on that regard, but it's something to monitor, because I had them last week. I said, I think their ceiling is about like 8 or 9 wins. If everything goes right, it's still going to be tough. Like everything has to go right. And at this point, if you're relying on your defense for everything to go right, it's going to be tough to get to 8 or 9 wins. So you got to see that offense continue to keep it moving and keep Zach Wilson growing.
That's an excellent point. But them, just what they've done with their defense these last couple of weeks, and going with Sauce Gardner. I tweeted this out earlier today. So there's 116 corners with at least 20% of coverage snaps this year in 2022. Sauce has the 4th lowest reception percentage allowed at 43.3%. He's allowed 13 catches on 30 targets. He has the 10th highest, higher being good, in terms of snaps per reception at 16.4. He has the 9th lowest QB rating when targeted at 54.2. And then he's tied for first in pass breakups. He's kind of been as advertised coming out of Cincinnati. Russ, you and I talked about it when we did the corner breakdown, diving into this class coming into the year. Like, his tape eventually just got boring because it was just like, oh, there's Sauce plastered on a guy again, not getting thrown at. Oh, he got thrown at. Up, he intercepted it or knocked it down. Up, that's it. Then that's it. That's every game against like everyone. Like, and then you also, I think it was an underrated piece with this game too. He's a willing tackler. Like, he comes up and he plays the run, both in terms of like as a force player and taking on blockers, but also in terms of like making tackles. He's been a standout for this team, and that's what you need. Like, you need those young guys to contribute. And Kendall, I love your Jags parallel, because we've seen the Jags falter after we kind of crowned them a little bit on this show. We've seen them falter because those young guys, that consistency was fleeting and they haven't shown it. Whereas the Jets' young guys are starting to stack consistency week after week and make some plays. And yeah, they walked into Green Bay, took that from Aaron Rodgers and the Packers and Lambeau, and now they sit at 4-2. Any other closing thoughts here, Jets Packers?
I have one to add to their secondary. As I stumble on my words here, LaMarcus Joyner, not getting enough praise. 31 years of age, went to the Jets last year, had an elbow injury, did not play for the whole year, came back this year. Everybody thought he was going to retire. He said, "I'm either retiring or I'm playing for the Jets. I love this organization too much and this coaching staff." One of those guys that kind of caught on with the Rams in the middle of his career, but didn't force a bunch of turnovers, only had 4 total interceptions going into his career, up to 2 on the year, tied
fumble recovery this week too.
Yeah, he's got 3 takeaways on the year, which is 4th in the NFL. He's doing a phenomenal job, whether it's coming down in tackling, in coverage, making, creating turnovers and giving the opposition or giving the offense the opportunity to create more. And it's allowing guys like Breece Hall more opportunities to run the football, giving guys like Braxton Berrios opportunities to run the football. Everything that you love to see with a young offense, it's giving them opportunities. And that's when they figure out what works and what doesn't. And that's kind of the key. So as this secondary kind of keeps it going, as you mentioned with Sauce, we talk about an old guy or an older guy in Joyner. That's key. So just wanted to kind of give some praise to him, because I was looking at just like their defense and their numbers, and I was like, oh, wow, forgot he even played for him.
Yeah, he's had a nice return year, and so has Carl Lawson, coming off a devastating injury last year. I think someone, obviously he's playing this year, but with that kind of injury, you're usually better 2 years after. I think as this year progresses, I'm interested to see if he starts to wear down or if he continues to get stronger and starts to get back to his old self. He was, I thought, a very underrated signing for the Jets last year. I thought that was a great signing and move for them. Then he goes down, misses the entire year. He's starting to come back. That's a nice added piece on that defensive front that's headed by Quinnen Williams and just being an absolute monster. And yeah, they played to their strengths in this game. They got the win in Green Bay, and we'll see what happens as the Jets move forward. For both, I think both these teams are very interesting going forward. Yeah. Can the Packers right the ship? Can the Jets hold on to what they built so far and stack it a little bit? They're in good position going forward, especially, again, within the division. Like, they get Miami later in the year at home. They still have to play New England twice. New England's a bit of a wild card, and then we'll see what they can make of themselves as they move forward. This has been another episode, or segment, I should say, of Cover One Football Weekly. If you enjoyed this, please rate and review and subscribe on any one of the podcasting apps or platforms. If you were watching this here on YouTube, please subscribe to the Cover One Football Weekly playlist and channel here on YouTube. Please also drop a like on this video. I know it's corny, but it goes a long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about it as well. We appreciate you tuning in. We will see you next week live at 7:15 p.m., potentially moving some things around as we move forward and take the show in some different directions. But you will see communication on that. For myself, Anthony Prohaska, for Kendall Mirsky and Russell Brown, this has been Cover One Football Weekly, and we'll see you next week.